A Trip into the Darkness, Chapter 18. After stopping off at Dalton, where they got gas, food, and energy drinks, Katie and Mallory back on the interstate and headed south. The following 12 hours were a blur of driving and music. They had to stop multiple times for gas before they finally reached the bustling city of Miami, Florida. Every time they stopped, their arrival time to reach Miami would increase by another half hour. Mallory figured that at this point it did not matter that it was taking longer to get there. She was over 1,000 miles away from Troy. There was no way he could figure out where she had gone. She had thought about throwing her phone out the window along the way, but decided against it. The device was off, so there was no way he could use it to track her. She also doubted that he would have installed a tracking device on her phone, considering he had been so confident that she would never escape him. When she thought about the events that had transpired during her escape, she really had no idea how it had happened. It was just so easy and it had worked out perfectly. Mallory thought about how she had asked the goddess Freya to help her escape. She also remembered how it had felt when there was an entity helping guide her during her escape. Maybe the goddess was on her side after all. Mallory reached up and touched her necklace with the rune Wunyo, which dangled down. Jesus, I thought Toledo had some terrible traffic. This city is insane, Katie yelled from the driver's seat. Glancing around, Mallory discovered that she was not wrong. It was only about 9 in the morning, and there was wall-to-wall traffic surrounding them. Buildings were blocking the view in every direction, and a few palm trees were scattered about. Reaching out, she grabbed Katie's phone off the holder. She needed to know how far away they were from the ocean. Looking at the closest beach on the maps, Mallory put Katie's phone back on its holder. Katie looked at the device and yawned before rubbing her eyes. She had black circles under them. Mallory also felt exhausted, but figured they could sleep on the sand once they reached the beach. After another 45 minutes of driving, she finally saw the water off in the distance. With a smile, she laughed and clapped her hands. We made it, Katie. We're almost there. Woohoo! Katie said with a smile before another yawn escaped her. Parking in the public beach parking area, they both got out of the Jeep. The sun was so bright and hot. Standing in the parking lot, the sound of the ocean was loud and left Mallory feeling alive. Florida had been by far her favorite place to live when she was younger. She had loved it when her mother would take the time to bring them to the beach. Her mom would sit under the umbrella for hours and read her book while Mallory played in the sand and ran in and out of the water. Her brother had also enjoyed it, even though he had often complained about it being too hot outside. Do you have a blanket or a towel we could lay on? She asked Katie as she rented the vehicle to help to stand beside her. Oh, you're just going to love me, Mal. Not only do I have a blanket, I have a pillow and an air mattress. You see, you never know when you're going to be stranded somewhere or take a random vacation like this, so it's always good to be prepared. Katie smiled as she opened the back hatch of her Jeep. Mallory shook her head at the luck and helped Katie load up the stuff to cart out to the public area. Aren't you going to be hot in all those clothes? Katie asked her as they walked onto the sand. I'll be okay. You know, I just noticed you don't have any shoes on. Did you lose them somewhere before I picked you up? Mallory glanced down at her feet. Amid everything that had happened in the last 24 hours, she had completely forgotten that didn't have any shoes on. Nothing felt real as she glanced out at the endless ocean. The water was so blue, and the sun reflecting off its surface made a rainbow of colors. How had she gone from being a prisoner to this in such a short amount of time? Yeah, something like that, Mallory finally said, feeling the need to answer her. Like every time she remembered visiting the beach as a child, there were lots of people lounging around. Some were playing in the water while others were slumbering in the sun. Kids ran around in the sand and built sandcastles. The throbbing in Mallory's mouth started to intensify and her throat became restricted. The red haze returned to her vision and she fought against her bloodlust. Taking a deep breath, she felt the tips of her fingers tingle as her claws tried to extend on their own accord. Hey, are you okay? Katie asked while looking at her face. There were so many people, Mallory was able to mumble through her clenched teeth. Let's just keep walking until we get away from them. At some point, the public section ends and it becomes private. We can set up there. Besides, I don't think anybody would dare tell you to leave. Mallory barely registered what Katy was saying, but she heard her continue to ramble on. She tried to listen, and it helped distract her from her inner demon. As they continued to walk, she waged an internal battle with herself not to attack the nearest person. At some point, they must have passed into a private section because there were no more people around. Focusing, Mallory could only hear one heartbeat, and it was coming from Katy. Taking a deep breath, the red haze that had engulfed her vision and the throbbing in her mouth eased back to its normal pressure. "You're looking better, not as pale and whatnot, you know," Katy told her. "Thanks. You want to stop here?" Mallory asked as she looked back at the water. "Yeah, this is perfect for me," Katy said as she dropped her arms full of stuff on the sand. Mallory did the same, and then they started airing up the air mattress and setting up a sleeping area. Once it was put together, Katy kicked off her shoes and plopped onto their little beach bed. "Man, this is great," she said, and then yawned, stretching her arms and legs. "Are you going to lie down with me and take a nap?" "Not right now. I think I'm going to go put my feet in the water. You get some sleep, Katy." Smiling, Katy nodded her head before closing her eyes. Mallory stood in the sand and watched her for another minute. She didn't know if she could sleep, even if she wanted to. She felt wired and wide awake after walking past all those people. She especially didn't know if she could trust herself to lay down beside Katy in the shape that she was in. The young woman with blue streaks in her hair looked like she was in her natural element as she slept on the air mattress. Her short hair was in waves like it had been styled by the Florida humidity. Her little black halter dress had ridden up her legs and exposed more of her tan flesh. Katy's full breasts pressed against the fabric, and even in the heat she could make out the girl's hard nipples. If Mallory didn't know any better, she would have said Katy was a Miami local. Shaking her head to clear her scrambled thoughts, Mallory bent down and grabbed her journal and a pen from the pile of stuff. She also picked up one of their water bottles. Taking off her socks, she dropped them on the air mattress and made her way out to the ocean. Once she was a couple of paces away from the water, she dropped all of her stuff on the sand and emptied her pockets. Next, she pulled off her black hoodie and the red cover. With a small smile, she walked into the warm water. It dawned on her that it would have been a good idea to roll up her pants legs. "Fuck it," Mallory whispered before dropping her entire body into the water. The waves rushed around her, pulling her in different directions. The warm water and the sunshine sunk into her, and she felt free. As she drifted in the ocean, part of her wished a shark would attack and end her existence before she turned rabid. Even with the pills she was taking, she realized how close she had been to slaughtering someone in the public beach area. How she'd been around Katy this long without hurting her, she did not know. By the time Mallory made her way out of the ocean, the sun was higher in the sky. Before she exited the water, she dug through the sand and collected a handful of seashells, which she put in her jeans pocket. Making her way back to the pile of stuff, she sat down to let the sun dry her body and clothes. Sitting there, she felt like the sun beating down on her was setting her skin on fire. Everywhere the sun's rays touched her made her itch and burn, and she was happy she had jeans on to protect her legs from the harmful rays. Reaching out, Mallory grabbed her black hoodie and pulled it on, and pulled up the hood to cover her face. She had never been one to get a sunburn, but at this point she was certain her skin was beet red. Looking out at the ocean and smelling the salt water, she felt like crying. A couple of days ago, she wouldn't have thought it was possible to be sitting on the beach watching the waves roll in. After a while, Mallory grabbed her journal and a pen and wrote, "This lust raging through me leaves me with a demon who screams for more. More, more, more," it chants in my head, demanding I give it what it desperately craves. It has polluted my thoughts and convinced me that I must have it no matter the risks, for I cannot live this life without more, more, more. Just a little, just enough, but wait, it is never enough. It will always leave you fiend, because it controls you and your happiness is dependent upon it. Energy, there is none. Desire, only for what is forbidden. More, more, more. I cannot think, and I cannot breathe, because I have dared to deny what I need. A need that rages, a need that controls, for it is a need that always needs more. Mallory removed her pen from the paper and read what she had just written. Not exactly an encouraging poem, she thought, placing her pen back down on the paper to try writing again. Walking through a cloudy day, not knowing which way. The rain, I wish it would start to fall. The rain, I need it to cleanse my dirty soul. That's not right, Mallory thought, and started writing again. The room I walk through is dark and dry. I bite my lip and hope and pray I will die underneath a sunny sky. Placing my hand against the wall, I hope I may trip and fall. For if I fall and hit my head, then thanks to the trauma I will surely be dead. Watch me as I fall. I fall down, down, down. Will I ever hit the ground? Burned, scraped, and damaged, I bleed. Watch me, dear friend, as I scream and I fiend. Dirty, tainted, nasty leech. Bad, bad Mallory, how do you sleep? You do not need to do the things you crave. You risk the life of others as if you were unfazed. You risk so much for a short-lived pleasure which will just leave you in an empty endeavor. Give it time, this lust will pass, and you will die underneath a fair blue sky at peace at last. With a growl, Mallory slammed her journal shut. She felt like her random ramblings could go on for days. She had remembered herself being a better poet compared to the gibberish she had just written down. Lighting a cigarette, she lay back on the sand and watched the clouds float by. When her smoke was gone, she pocketed the bud, threw an arm over her face, and closed her eyes under the afternoon light. Tilda. Jerking awake, Mallory found her mouth throbbing and her throat dry. She looked at the sky and guessed by the position of the sun that she'd only been asleep for a few short hours. Digging through her pile of stuff, she found a pill bottle. Throwing another handful of pills into her mouth, she finished off the water she had brought down with her. She glanced back at the air mattress and saw Katie still sprawled out on it. Standing up, Mallory brushed the sand from her jeans. She was completely dry now. Gathering up her things, she made her way back to the air mattress and sat down on it. Katie moaned and stretched her arms before opening her eyes. "Hey, you. There you are. What's wrong?" Katie asked when she got a good look at Mallory's face. Sitting up on the air mattress, Katie waited for Mallory's response. Fuck it, Mallory thought before she said, "Katie, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a vampire, and I feel like my world has completely spun out of control. I'm so thirsty and craving blood so much, but I don't know how to feed from someone. I think the next person I bite, I will kill by accident." "A vampire? Have you ever fed before? If you want to, you could feed from me. I'll be happy to share my blood with you," Katie gushed. Mallory wanted to laugh at her response and her enthusiasm. She was certain the only reason Katie was so accepting and eager was because she was under her spell. She was willing to bet if she told Katie to walk out into the middle of the ocean and just start swimming and never stop, that Katie would do just that until the moment she drowned. Tears pricked the back of Mallory's eyes because she so desperately wanted to believe that Katie had somehow become her friend in the short amount of time they had known each other. "No, Katie, I will not feed from you because you're my friend, and I don't want to risk hurting you." "Well, then, we'll just go find someone else for you to drink from. Maybe someone with a beach house. That way, if you do kill him, we can just live in their house forever, rent-free." Mallory could not stop the laugh that escaped her lips at the insanity of what Katie had just suggested. It was a good idea, maybe, except for the fact that she was likely going to kill someone very soon. She hadn't pegged Katie to be the let's kill them and reap the benefits kind of person. "Look, Mal, what happens if you don't get your blood soon?" Katie asked her. Mallory remembered yet again what Troy had told her about turning into a rabid animal that would die after she lost her sanity. Licking her dry lips, she said, "Well, I could get really bad without blood." "Then it's settled. We'll load up here and go knock on people's doors until we find someone we like. They need to be single and live alone, preferably without any kids, and I would pick a male. One less man in this world would be ideal for society." "You're crazy," Mallory told her, shaking her head. "You have no idea, Mal. I paid for all of our gas on the way down here with stolen credit cards that I got from the guy at the mall right before I found you in the parking lot. Also, when I was 9, I stabbed my foster dad in the eye with a letter opener because he told me no. Of course, when the police asked me about it, I said it was because he tried to touch my vagina. Katie laughed as she stood up and started assembling the bed. Mallory got up and helped Katie gather the stuff and questioned her choice in friends. Maybe the reason the only real friend she had been able to make in the last 5.5 years was an old man was because her taste in people was questionable. Thinking about Eddie made her eyes burn again. They started walking back towards the public beach, and Mallory saw all the people, their smells filling the damp air. Her heart started to race as her bloodlust intensified. Katie must have noticed her change because she started talking to her, and what Mallory assumed was an attempt to keep her from attacking. You know, it makes sense now why sometimes you change. Like, not actually change, but your face becomes so pale and your eyes literally turn black. You also get these weird black circles under your eyes. You look straight up savage, like you're off some horror movie or something. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's kind of scary. The first time I noticed it, we were on my Jeep down here. Oh, and when you came out of the drugstore yesterday, you hardcore looked like you're about to murder someone, which I guess technically you were probably about to do that. I still can't believe you're a vampire and haven't bitten anyone yet. Like, how does that even work? Have you been like living off blood bags or something? Oh, Mal, if you can turn me, will you? Then we could spend the rest of eternity together. Walking through the public beach area, Katie continued to carry on with her gibberish. Most of what she said Mallory missed, but it helped to give her something else to focus on besides her desire to attack the strangers around them. When they finally made it back to the Jeep, Mallory was panting because of her efforts. Her muscles were cramping from being so tense. While driving, Katie informed her that she was taking them to the richer side of town to house hunt. She seemed to be completely on board with the idea of Mallory slaughtering some innocent person. When she pulled up to the first house, Katie asked if she wanted to go meet the owner with her or just wait outside for her return. With a snort, Mallory told her to just go and she would wait. A short time passed before Katie returned, stating that the couple was super nice. They stopped at a couple more houses, and Mallory's pain pills finally began kicking in. The tension left her limbs, and the red haze started to lift from her vision. As she waited in the Jeep for Katie, she contemplated her life decisions. If she were a good person, she would have drowned herself in the ocean. That would be a much more respectable way to go. At this point in her life, she hadn't killed anyone. Then again, she had not gone through all that effort to escape Troy just to off herself. She owed it to herself and whatever force was collaborating with her to at least try and learn how to survive in this new world. With that, Mallory watched as Katie left the front porch of the house they were at with a huge smile on her face. Opening the door, Katie didn't get in this time and instead said, "I found you a perfect match. He is young, rich, single, and a fucking asshole on top of it. It's fate."